Hi there, I'm Carol from San Francisco Stitch Co. And if you love embroidery and quilting like I do, today we're going to learn how to add embroidery to in the middle of a Sawtooth star block. So I'm always on the lookout for blocks that have good opportunities for embroidery in them, and the Sawtooth star is one of them. I'll show you just another project I've been working on. This is a Sawtooth star block, and it has a nice open area here that can accent any kind of embroidery you have, and then it has 4 flying geese and squares in the corner, so it's pretty simple to make too. If you made any of our Carefree highway blocks, we've been cross-stitching our way through all 50 states, and I have, of course, California is here. And just to show you the 2 different sizes, here's Alaska. There's 4.5 inch and 6 inch blocks. And today we're going to work on the smaller block, and we're going to add it to the middle of a blue star because I'm planning kind of like a patriotic finish for this with white stars on a blue field, and I'm going to work in even the stripes in the border. So let's get started. So I was trying to pick a single blue for my background, and I really, that I like them all. So I don't know, I've also been trying to just use up what I have a little bit over the past year. So I have this collection, which is American Gatherings, and this is just a really pretty blue. So I think I'm gonna go with more of a scrappy look and kind of mix these up with my blocks and see where it goes. I'm gonna measure across my block 5.5 inches, and I could see there's about 3/8 here and 3/8 on this side of my exterior line. And then I'm just going to make a little tick mark, and then do the same across this dimension. And then just using this as a guide with my ruler, I'm going to put my pencil on the tick mark, line up my red stitched line, and draw the cut line across the block. And I'll do that on all 4 sides. When I draw the second line, I'm also referencing the pencil line I drew down here just to make sure I get a perpendicular mark. It helps to put your pencil down on the line, and then you'll know how to hold it when you draw. I always measure twice, cut once, and look once, but I could see my block is nicely centered in the lines that I drew. So now I'm ready to cut. Again, it kind of helps to put your knife, your rotary cutter on the line, and then just bring the ruler up to it. I can use this finger to just kind of steady it a little bit and get it right on that line. To me, that's easier than trying to put the ruler down first and then cut. When I cut, I keep part of my hand just on the board, so that way you can very firmly hold the ruler, and you'll feel if it's moving. It's a very solid way to cut with your hand both on the ruler and the piece. Okay, so that's my first block cut. I'll just be making 1 block for the video, but we're gonna have 50. We have 25 of our states done, and we have 25 to go. So it's a good point to start doing some of this other work. You can also, while you stitch new blocks, you can work on making your old blocks into stars. So you can see on my California block, I had already kind of pre-trimmed it down a little bit, and I didn't get that much excess off the edges, so I'm just going to discard this. But on some of my other blocks, I have left a lot of excess around, and I like to do that because if you only have a little bit around your block, you're going to be left with unusable pieces. But in this case, we do need some extra of this background fabric to make the star points. So you can see I don't need a lot around these blocks. So I have this entire area here that I can cut and use for the star point pieces on my blocks. I've just gone ahead and pre-cut all of my pieces for the block. So here's what we need. We need 4 large rectangles. And then to make the flying geese, we need 8 of the star points. So these I was actually able to cut out all from excess fabric from my embroidery stitch outs, but at some point I'm probably going to have to get some extra. I'm using the grunge crema, which is always available, so I don't have to worry about running out at this point. And then you need 4 blue squares for the corners. Now, some people use the technique where you draw a diagonal line on your squares to get the flying geese unit, but I'm just going to go over to my ironing station and just iron them in half, and that gets me my diagonal line, and it kind of saves a step later. It's just the way I like to do it. Now we're at the machine ready to make our first goose, and I have 2 of my triangle units and 1 rectangle, and what I'm going to do is just line this up carefully in the corner and then open it up, and then I usually just kind of secure this side with a pin. I'm a pinner. Now we're gonna just sew right on the line. So some people, I know they sew a hair's breadth to the one side, but I just find if I can just stitch on a line, it's good enough for me. So just take your time and just follow either your pencil line or your folded line across. And sew right into the corner. Now I can take this out, and I'm already pressed, and I can cut off my 1 tip here. Okay, we have 1 side complete. Now we're going to line up our other corner. And one of the most important things with a flying geese unit is to make sure that these are going to overlap right at the 1/4 inch line. So my folded method here also, kind of gives you a preview of whether or not that's happening. And I can see mine, I actually measured mine, and it looks really good. If you pin out of the seam line, you can leave your pins in as you sew, and that's another thing that really helps accuracy. I just don't enjoy having to stop every few stitches to take pins out. Again, like so, right into the corner. Open it up, okay, and we could see that I do have my 1/4 inch seam there, and my corners look nice. They're both pieces of fabric are going right into the corner, so that's going to set us up for a better star points later on. And we're also going to remember to trim off that the underside of that as well. Some people actually go back and take these triangles, because this is a lot of fabric here. If you take this back and stitch here as you go along, you'll have a really super set of 8 little half square triangles, but I'm not going to do that. Now I've completed all 4 of my geese, and we get a little payoff now. We get to kind of get a preview of our block. So the putting embroidery in a Sawtooth star, you're pretty much going to double the size of the block that you had, because we used a 4.5-inch embroidery, and this block is going to be about 9 inches when it's complete. So I just think I'm really pleased. I think that looks great. And now we have kind of a simple 9 patch to sew together. So we're going to sew these 3 together, the middle 3 and the top 3. So I'm going to start with my bottom row, and first I'm going to take these 2 pieces. I'm going to sew this with the Flying Geese unit on top, and I'll tell you why. Because I want to make sure as I sew across that that little corner there is in 1/4 of an inch. That is going to give me a good point placement on the block. I'm also pinning out of the seam line, because again, I just don't enjoy stopping and taking pins out. Okay, then you usually want to press the way which there is less seam, so that'll be to the square block side. So I'm going to press that seam this way. And then if I check the front, you can see that this point is in 1/4 of an inch when I sewed it, just because I made sure by sewing on the Flying Goose side of where that point was going to be. So I'll do the other side. You really don't have to pin these. It's just kind of helping me as I film to keep things in place. I used to be a tremendous pinner, but I think it slows you down in a lot of ways. So as I come across here, I'm going to make sure that that point where I cross this line is 1/4 of an inch in from the edge of the patchwork. That point is a good 1/4 inch in from the edge there, and that's going to ensure whatever patchwork we attach on this side is going to give us a beautiful point there. So I'm going ahead and sewing my top strip together now, which is basically the same thing as the bottom, and I just want to show you something how I did this point, but it's just like a little less than 1/8 of an inch. It's just a little skimpy, and I'm just not happy with it. So all I really need to do is go back and just sew a little bit more of a seam, and it'll correct that. So try to just have patience with your work and try to look for potential problems coming and correct them as you see them. I don't have to pick out that first seam to do this, so it's really a quick fix too. Okay, and that looks much better to me now. So now we have our center portion to sew together, and again I'm gonna put the Flying Goose on top. This I'm gonna pin again because it's just a little bit bigger of a piece, and it's just helpful to stabilize it a bit. So it feels like my top piece is just a little shorter than the embroidered part. So that can happen when you're making Flying Geese, because everything crunches in a little bit. But it's not going to be helpful to me to sew this and not have those 2 pieces matching up. So I'm going to just kind of force them to align, and I'm going to pin that really securely. You can weave your pins in and out to get a good hold. And then you know, this is fabric, so it's gonna knit itself together, even though that top piece is a little stretched. So as I sew across this time, I'm going to sew right across that X, and that's what's going to give me the inside point on the star. I'm going to put my needle down to hold it. This time I have to take out the pin because I'm in the seam line, but the needle is holding the pieces together at this point, and I'm just going to make sure my center is lined up with the bottom piece as well. This seam I want to make sure is a nice straight one, because if you can, I can see through this a little bit, and the red embroidery line is there, And when you have embroidered lines, you don't want to sew those pieces crooked or it's just gonna not look good. Okay, I'm getting to my point, through my point there, and down this side. I can almost keep the edge of my foot on that red line because I can see through the fabric. And I can see that I am sewing nice and parallel to that red line. All right, so let's see what we got. And I think that came out really nice. I got a nice point there. Okay, we'll do the other side. I do like to weave my pins on the edges because it really holds the corners together beautifully. And then this one, I'm even just going to put a pin down here just to keep everything together. That pin was hard to get in because the embroidery's under there. All right, let's sew. If you notice, I have this nice foot with my Bernina. It's a 1/4 inch foot. So all you have to do is align your patchwork up with that edge. So my friends make fun of me because it's kind of like training wheels, but one time all 3 of us had to make the same block, and mine was the one that was closest to the size that it was supposed to be when I finished. So I'm sticking with my training wheels. Sew through the X, go over to the end. I'm just going to pull my pin out partially so it'll still hold it, but I won't be sewing over it. And there we are. Unpinned. Okay, we got another beautiful join there. And you can also see it might look a little wavy because it's not on a flat surface, but my embroidery line is really perfectly parallel to the sewn line, and that just makes it look really sharp. Now we're really making progress here and I'm excited. I really love the way it's coming out. So I just wanna, now we have the 3 strips to connect and I just wanna show you the back. I try to keep a super neat back. They told me that was the mark of a good needle woman, but it also just really helps in terms of keeping your piecing accurate. Okay, it's our ta-da moment, and I just wanted to show you the last 2 seams on a Sawtooth star. I usually press open just because these areas start to get kind of thick, but if you want to press them to one side or the other, usually the patchwork will tell you which side that it wants to go to, and you can do as you please. And here we go. So that's it for today. We've made a beautiful embroidered Sawtooth block out of a small 4.5 inch embroidery. We now have like a gangbuster 10-inch block, and we can include it just in a project of its own, say a pillow or a small placemat for a California state lover, or I'm gonna continue on to do all 49 of my states the same way and make a rather large quilt. So I'll have a link to the written instructions below, or you can visit our website, the Carefree Highways page, and I'll be sure to post the tutorial there as well. Be sure to ask any questions you have below, and I'll be happy to try to answer them. I hope I've inspired you today, and thanks for watching.